Hey friends, how you doing? I'm Steve. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about a young musician who's only been on the scene for a short time, but in that time he's made a tremendous impact on the world of rock. Comes from rock and roll royalty, but he's broken out and forged a name for himself. His music and style is breathing new life into the current music landscape. And of course, today we're going to talk about Wolfgang Van Halen. So who is Wolfgang Van Halen? Well, he was born March 16th, 1991 in Santa Monica, California, to the actress Valerie Bertinelli and the legend himself, guitarist Eddie Van Halen. From before birth, Eddie immersed Wolfgang in music. He would rest an acoustic guitar in Valerie's pregnant belly and he'd play songs, particularly one he later named 316 after Wolfgang's birthday. As I'm sure you've noticed, Wolfgang is an unusual name. It was chosen in honor of Eddie's favorite composer, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Now, he says that while he was growing up, there wasn't one specific moment when he realized that he was the son of a famous musician. It was kind of more of an accumulated understanding. There are videos of him running on stage when he was around 4 years old in front of thousands of fans just to see his dad. He says they'd go places and Eddie would get recognized by people and he didn't understand why. He didn't know. It just didn't click. It wasn't until one day he was with Eddie in the famous 5150 studio, and they had just finished remastering all the Van Halen albums onto CD, and he saw a picture of his dad on the back of one of the CDs, and he was like, oh, why are you on the cover? And that's when it clicked. He figured out that his dad was famous. He started playing drums at the age of 9, playing along to Van Halen Best of Volume 1 and Enema of the State by Blink-182. Travis Barker is one of his heroes. Now, his uncle Alex Van Halen did show him some stuff on the drums, but he's mostly self-taught. He says, contrary to popular belief, his dad never pushed him towards music, nor did he ask his dad for lessons. Aside from the occasional, hey dad, how do you play this? He's entirely self-taught. While the environment he's in, I mean, with all those great musicians around there and his dad, the genius that he was, that helped. But he worked long and hard to learn what he has done, and it shows. When he was young, he and 3 of his friends had a, quote, bedroom band they called the Vents. They never played anywhere but in the bedroom, and they played stuff like System of a Down or The Strokes. He was never in a real band prior to joining Van Halen. But what a way to be introduced to the big time. Wolfgang, at the age of 15, joined Van Halen as the band's bassist, replacing Michael Anthony. His first gig with them was at the Bobcats Arena in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he says it was like being shot out of a cannon. He had been practicing and preparing for hours upon hours for 2 years prior to that date, and he was ready, and he came out swinging. But Van Halen fans were kind of a loyal bunch. A lot of the fan base was angry over the departure of Michael Anthony, and they reacted pretty harshly towards Wolfgang. And you can imagine this is a tough pill to swallow, especially for a young and impressionable teenage kid. He says almost immediately he became aware that to every 40 to 50-year-old man, he was the enemy. He didn't know how to handle it, and it was a real hard time for him. Now, for a young musician who's inexperienced, stepping in to fill some huge shoes in one of the biggest bands in the world, he found there were a lot of expectations and a bunch of challenges he had to overcome. Now, in case you're wondering, Wolfgang says that he and Michael have no bad blood. They still talk, and he thinks he's a great guy. In fact, they just met up recently in December 2023 after a Mammoth show. Wolfgang's contribution to Van Halen went well beyond just his bass playing. He added a fresh new energy to the band, helping them create new music for the 2012 release, A Different Kind of Truth, which turned out to be their last album. He loved being in the studio with his dad and uncle, but he got a quick, hard lesson about the internal politics of bands. For example, the 3 of them had worked on a new song they affectionately called Ain't Talking About Panama, without any input from David Lee Roth, the recently returned original lead singer. They knew they had to pick the moment to present it to him because he can be a little difficult. So they had the producer present the song to him, and his instant response, nope.
You didn't say the magic word.
So, David Lee Roth. Anyway, Wolfgang was still in high school, attending an elite school where several celebrity kids went. You would think that with their own experiences, they'd have some understanding, but they gave him a hard time. He had taken time off to tour with Van Halen and returned planning on graduating in 2009. They would go, while he was walking down the hall, they'd go, "There goes the bass player for Van Halen." Now that sounds cool, but it wasn't meant to be. And he said it kind of made him feel more like a loser. He said he'd always been kind of a nerd anyway, and this was just par for the course. Even with all the negativity he had to deal with, Wolfgang said it was worth it. You know, he got to play with his dad and his uncle, and it just felt natural to him. He loved being in the studio with them every day, and he really misses it. Now, he remained the bassist until they dissolved in 2020 after Eddie's death, but he'd already begun to make a name for himself. He had started some side projects that allowed him to develop his own style and showcase his versatility as an artist. Eddie referred to Wolfgang's playing style as rhythm bassist because he was kind of like a combo between a rhythm guitar and a bass guitar. He gets his inspiration from Les Claypool of Primus and Justin Chancellor of Tool, but he also gets some from the classic players like John Entwistle from The Who and Jack Bruce of Cream. Now, in 2012, he was in New Jersey. He was hanging out and jamming with his friends in the band Seven Dust when they were recording their album Blackout Sun. That's a pretty cool album. You should check it out. Really rocks. Late one night, Mark Tremonti, best known as the guitarist for Creed and Alter Bridge, called and said that he had heard that Wolf was in town and they needed a bass player, asked if he was interested. Wolfgang loaded his stuff up and was in New York in 45 minutes. He learned their entire set that night and went on tour with them the next day. He toured with them from 2012 to 2016 and played bass on their 2015 release Cauterize and their 2016 release Dust. He had been writing his own stuff for a while before touring with Tremonti. He says that experience with Tremonti gave him the confidence to start focusing on his solo stuff. The first song he wrote was called Mammoth. And he chose that name because it's used to describe something really big, and that's what he felt he was doing. But that wasn't the only reason he chose that name. See, Mammoth was the original name for Van Halen back in the 70s before David Lee Roth suggested they change the name to Van Halen. He thought it would give him a small connection to where he came from. He was really nervous to tell his dad about it. He was worried that he wouldn't approve. And it took him 2 years to tell him. When he finally did, Eddie said, "Why the F would you be nervous about that?" So he didn't care. It took 8 years for Wolfgang to release his debut album, Mammoth WVH. He deliberately left the Van Halen name off. He wanted to make it on his own, by his own merits of songwriting and musicianship, and not because Eddie was his dad. He definitely shows his talent. The album is awesome. Wolfgang played all the instruments on the songs, including singing. His voice is fantastic. He says that all the years of doing Michael Anthony's backing vocals, they were a massive workout, and it really helped him develop his voice. The first song released was called Distance. It was released November 2020, 1 month after Eddie's passing. The song is beautiful, emotional, very moving, and it's made even more intense by the video that was released that shares childhood photos of him, his dad, and his family. The song captures the profound love and connection between a father and son, and it became an anthem of healing and remembrance for fans around the world. Wolfgang says his dad's health was up and down his entire life, and the first bout of cancer his dad experienced was when he was around 8 years old, and it resulted in him having a half of his tongue removed. Distance came after another bout of health issues, and he was thinking about his dad when he wrote it. It was an emotional time. He was in a dark place with uncertainty of his dad's health, everything that was weighing on him. It was difficult, but he learned that music can be healing and comforting. He says Eddie cried the first time he heard the song, and they shared a special moment that he will carry forever. The song was nominated in 2022 for a Grammy Award in the category of Best Rock Song. When talking about his dad, there's a little sorrow and pride. They had a wonderful relationship. Eddie had his demons, but he was always there for Wolfgang, and he loved his son's music. He wanted Wolfgang to grow into his own person and made sure he knew that he was proud of him, and I'm sure knowing that is comforting to him. Now, Mammoth WVH has some phenomenal songs. Distance, Don't Back Down, they both debuted at #1 on the Billboard mainstream rock play charts. Seriously, there is not a bad song on this album. Wolfgang has definitely found his own sound, and he does not sound like Van Halen. If you have not heard his stuff, you need to check it out. He's also put out some wildly entertaining videos in support of the album, and they're funny as heck. And it shows him in different positions as different members of the band, stereotypical attitudes of each role. I enjoy them quite a bit. They're very funny. Check them out if you haven't seen them. They are awesome. Now, Mammoth WVH reached #1 on the U.S. top rock, top hard rock, and independent albums charts for Billboard, and #12 on the Billboard 200. Since Wolfgang didn't have a full band, he had to hire a bunch of musicians when he went on tour supporting the album, and he was opening for Guns N' Roses in 2021. Now, what's amazing to me is Wolfgang has not been well received by everyone, especially diehard Van Halen fans. He's gotten a lot of hate, which really makes no sense to me because I don't understand why, but he's not bothered by it, nor does he back down from it. He responds to Twitter X opportunities he finds whenever he gets a chance to put people in their place. What irritates him the most is when people are stupid. We have that in common. They say stupid stuff like he's milking the Van Halen name. His response, "It's my freaking name." It's ridiculous. Anyway, they're also unhappy that he's not willing to do an Eddie Van Halen tribute concert. He says it's just not going to happen. Now, he played at the Taylor Hawkins, that's the drummer for Foo Fighters, who passed away in March of 2022. They had a tribute concert in September of 2022, and he played Panama with the surviving members of Foo Fighters under a large photo of his dad. Now, to him, that was not only a tribute to Taylor, but it was also a tribute to his dad, and it was a way for him to get closure without having to deal with the politics of Van Halen. He says he does not have to do a tribute concert for his dad because everything he does is for and because of his dad. He's a living tribute to Eddie, and I think he's right. As a father, I can tell you that that would mean a lot more to Eddie than anything else. Now, recently, Sammy Hagar, Michael Anthony, Jason Bonham, and Joe Satriani announced that they were going to do a Van Halen tribute tour in 2024, going, quote, deep into the Van Halen archives. Now, Van Halen says that's an awesome idea. He's stoked about it, and he's happy that they're doing it. Wolfgang married his longtime girlfriend, Adriana Alsop, on October 15th, 2023. This was the 8th anniversary of their first date. Wolfgang and his mom, Valerie, walked down the aisle to Eddie's 316 as a way to include him in the ceremony. Mammoth 2 came out this year, 2023, and it shows that Eddie's apple doesn't fall far from the tree because, like Eddie, he's a fantastic songwriter. He says that the songs on the album were written while he was dealing with his dad's illness, more so than the first album. He says this album is aggressive, angry, sad, and depressing, but it's a lot of fun. It was his way of dealing with the emotions and stress of dealing with his dad's illness and passing at that time. Wolfgang also appears on the 2023 Barbie soundtrack. He has bits throughout the movie, but the song I'm Ken features his guitar playing. Slash is on the soundtrack too, if you're interested. Mammoth just wrapped up touring with Alter Bridge and shows with Metallica and headlining their own tour with Nina Strauss as the support. They just announced a new headlining tour in 2024, again with Nina Strauss appearing as a guest artist. Wolfgang Van Halen's music is unique and personal, showing his individual artistry, creativity, and abilities, and he lives up to the legacy of his name. He has overcome the unfair treatment some of the Van Halen fans have shown him and the great sadness of losing a parent, showing he can honor his father and still be his own person. He has a bright future, and I look forward to seeing what's next for him, and he will be an inspiration to the next generation of musicians. So new music I'm going to suggest that you check out. Listen to Mammoth 2. This album is awesome. Tunes like Another Celebration at the End of the World, Right, they're heavy rockers right in your face. And I'm Alright is a great jab at his haters. Somehow this album shows growth over his amazing debut album, and it's definitely worth your attention. The video for A Celebration at the End of the World, that marks a move from solo to having band members in a very funny and entertaining way. Check it out. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If there's someone you want me to check out, let me know. I'll be happy to do it. So until next time, don't forget, no matter what they say, rock's not dead. Take care.